Hi everybody. So this week it's going to be a quick assignment. We are going to work on our arm and leg anatomy. Going to load up our base mesh here, and this is what I will be using for this week. All that's going to be due this week is a quick sculpt of the arm and the leg, just going over our basic anatomy. And then also I'm going to go over what is required for your midterm project. Your midterm project shouldn't take too long. It's going to be just your character at this point set up in a character sheet, so you guys can understand how to set up a character sheet for your final when your character is all complete. And it will be set up in Photoshop, and I will run through how to do that for anybody who's not familiar with Photoshop. Sorry if I sound a little bit sick. I've had a long weekend running back and forth across the country for a wedding and have come down with a cold. But I will do my best here. So to start, I'm going to use my base mesh, and I'm going to separate out just his arm to begin with. And you guys can either sculpt this directly on the mesh, or you can hide out the mesh like I'm going to do here. I'm going to subdivide them just a couple of times first so I can get some geometry. And then we're going to work on the arm. Alright, so the arm's pretty quick. We've already gone over the torso and the front and back, and we were following our landmarks. We had our collarbone here, and we had our shoulder blades that were here. So coming off of those, your shoulder muscle, your deltoid, those attach to those two bones right there. So if I smooth this out a little bit. So your deltoid muscle, let me add one more subdivision just so you guys can get a real clear picture of this. Separate this out one more time. And we're not going to need symmetry. Okay. So coming from my two landmarks here, my collarbone and my scapula, or my shoulder blade, we're going to use the clay buildup brush with a low intensity again. And I'm going to darken this up a little bit so you guys can see this a little better. There we go. And I'm going to start sculpting from my collarbone, and I'm going to try to make a heart shape. So it's going to go from that point out to the scapula, and then it's going to fill in right here. So there's three heads to your deltoid, and it's roughly a heart-shaped muscle. Goes from your collarbone and connects to the upper bone in your arm, and then comes from your scapula and also connects. And it branches down a little bit, and then the top major head of the shoulder covers the rest of that. Now with all anatomy, after I lay down the clay, I like to grab the move brush and kind of take all those forms that I built and kind of snug them into place. Okay. And we'll just give that a quick smooth. Now from there, I'll work on the front part of the arm. This gives me my bicep muscle. And this just tucks right underneath here. A lot of people like to make this muscle really, really big. It's not very big. It just balls up quite a bit when it's flexed. It's actually a relatively small muscle. Pretty straightforward. you just want to make sure that it goes underneath the shoulder muscle here. So now we'll come around to the back. This is the tricep muscle. Now before I do the tricep muscle, I like to make sure that I have my other bony landmark, the elbow, laid out. And I do this technique, I call it the dragonfly. So I look generally about the midpoint of my arm, so right about here, so right about here, and I will make a little shape here. So I will draw a straight line and bring that down, and I'll draw another one that comes up like this, and then I'm going to draw one that goes across this way. So it's kind of like a cross. I call it a dragonfly. I learned it from an artist a very long time ago, and he called it a dragonfly. So it's just a thing that helps me remember to set up my bony landmark first, because doing this little cross pattern over this sets me up later on down the road, and we'll get to that. But I've developed this area here, which is a big giant ligament in your tricep. If you flex your tricep muscle and you feel this area of your arm, you'll see that it's got this big flat area. And then I'm going to work on the tricep muscles themselves. So there's two heads to the tricep. The first one comes down and it connects down here to the elbow, and it comes way up high like this, and it pops in right there. So it doesn't take up this whole area, it just kind of pops in right there. And then the other head of the tricep, of course, goes on the other side here, but then this one actually runs down a little bit longer and a little bit wider. Comes all the way down the inside of the arm. Now that area that I set up before, I can come in again with my move, and I can kind of flatten this area out a little bit, because this area of the tricep is actually just a big giant ligament, and it's nice and flat. We want to make sure that we really establish that, because that's really what defines that tricep. It's not so much the big bulging muscle, it's this big flat area. Now in all of these anatomy tutorials, these are just very quick tutorials, kind of the quick and dirty, just to give you guys a vague idea of the landmarks that you should be thinking about when doing anatomy. This is not a super in-depth discussion and topic about insertion points and you know, getting very high resolution detail, making sure we get all of our striations. I just want you guys to understand the basic layout, because anatomy is confusing, and if you don't have at least a roadmap to try and follow, it can be very overwhelming. So again, I'm going to smooth these out here. And you can see just some quick smoothing, and I've already got the makings of a solid arm. Okay. And then we get into the forearm. The forearm is a very chaotic place. I like to start right in the crease of the bicep, so I will grab the Damien standard brush and I'll make myself a crease here first. Just going to make a crease like this, and that's going to give me a landmark to work with. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to eyeball where the ball of the wrist is at, here, and then I get on the other side, here, again, just to give me landmarks to work with. And then I'm going to develop the upper part of the forearm. This muscle is a very strange shaped muscle. It fills in this spot right here and actually comes down and attaches to the elbow. And then this muscle actually comes up and over and down and connects to the wrist there. And then this whole area is filled in by that muscle. If you move your forearm around and kind of flex it, you'll notice this is the most prominent muscle on your forearm. It's very big. It comes up right here. And then after I get that one in there, I like to put in what's called the brachialis. It's a little tiny muscle right in between the tricep, the shoulder, and the bicep. You would really only see this on someone who's very, very muscular or has no body fat on them at all. Majority of people, you can't really see that muscle, but it's just what kind of fills in that gap in between there. And I like to think of the forearm like a drumstick. You've got two bulging sides here in the skinnier part. So where this big muscle is at on this side, there is a matching one that connects over here. Close to matching. I don't want to say it absolutely matches it. It's a little bit different shape. And we're going to kind of stick just with this one big general muscle over here. I don't want to get into all the extensors and all of that in the forearm, because majority of people, you can't see all of those. And then underneath the forearm, there's another muscle that comes out from underneath the armpit like this. Actually, I want to fill in this tricep a little bit more. Make sure that bicep is coming back as far as it's supposed to. And then we'll do a quick smooth. Okay. And then I'm going to drop my draw size a little bit. And I'm just going to finish filling out. Again, these are a lot of extensors and flexors in the forearm. And I'm just going to do a rough in of these. I'm going to use them just as kind of a guide, and then I'm going to grab my move brush and just take this part of the arm and pop it out just a little bit, because it usually sticks out just a teensy bit. Okay. And then we can reference in some of the bones in the hand just to help flesh out the arm a little bit more. I usually just like to kind of plop in some knuckles really quick, just to give the hand some mass. And then once I get to about there, I will take my smooth brush and drop the intensity a whole bunch, and then I'll just run a quick smooth over it. And sometimes it even helps to even subdivide. Oh, sorry, my mesh is hidden, so let's delete hidden. And then we'll subdivide one more time. So there we go. So now we can smooth out some of these lumps and bumps. And now we have the makings of your basic landmarks for muscle anatomy, or for arm anatomy, sorry. And then you just kind of go in after you get these in there, and you can come in after you've subdivided a little bit, and you can continue to refine these forms a little more. Really start to flesh them out. And then it's just the same process like we always do. Just build up and smooth out, and build up and smooth out. I like to take the Damien standard and really come in here and cut in and then smooth back out. Really cut in and make sure that armpit's defined. Smooth it back out. Okay, but this gives you at least a rough idea. Of the arm. Okay. Sorry, once I get going with anatomy, I kind of have to keep tweaking it. And you guys will do that. You'll just keep playing and keep playing and keep playing until you get it just right. And always be looking at reference. Female bodybuilders are actually the really great anatomy reference because they have all the definition without the bulk that men have, which is really great. So please remember that. Keep your reference handy. Okay, so now we're going to do a quick tutorial on the leg. So let me hide everything. Actually, we're going to take more of that. Okay. So with the leg, again, like everything with anatomy, we want to start with the bones. So here we have our, what's called our iliac crest. It's the bone that sticks out the most in your pelvis. So I like to get that in place. And then I'll come down to the knee area here, and I'll have another trick like the dragonfly. I call this the gnome. I put two little eyes. This is actually a little big. Let me drop my draw size. Two little eyes, and then I like to put a little beard, and then I give him a little hat. And then I smooth that out. And it gives me the basics of a knee to start with. And I can grab that center part of his mouth and pull it out a little bit. It gives me a knee to work with. And then we'll start laying in our anatomy. So I like to start up here. Right in the center about here is where your hip bone is, and there's usually a depression there. And then you have your gluteus minor that comes out here. Then you have your gluteus maximus, comes out here. And your gluteus maximus actually comes down the back part of your leg here and shoots all the way down the side. It's got this big giant tendon that shoots down the side. Don't be afraid to sculpt the butt. It's important. It's a big muscle, and if you don't have it, your model will look funny. Okay. And then from there, I'll start eyeing up my quadricep area. Now with the quadricep, a lot of people will tend to just put two big muscles like this and think that their quadricep is all set. Your quadricep actually is at an angle. One side is a little bit higher, like this. And then the inside is actually a little bit lower, like this. And this area is relatively flat because you have a big bone there, your femur. And then there is another bigger muscle that sits right here. Okay. And then there's a big giant tendon that comes down and wraps all the way around these muscles, kind of encasing them. Oh, sorry, my wireless tablet just died for a second. Okay, wraps around. Okay, and then we'll give that a quick smooth. Alright. Again, this is very quick. Just trying to give you guys an idea of where these landmarks are at so you'll know what you're looking at when you're looking at reference. Then when we come down the front of the leg, there's a connection that goes here, and this muscle, your shin muscle here, actually comes over and wraps over the front of your shin bone and connects down here on the other side of your foot. It's actually a pretty big muscle here. Just kind of reference it in. And on the other side, comes down, and this actually starts the beginning of your calf. Here, and your calf actually has two parts. There's one head here, and another here. And these actually go up into the pit of your knee. And then coming down from the gluteus maximus is your hamstring, and those actually go down and come down either side of your calf muscle. It's actually two big heads again, and they split. Your calf muscle inserts in there, and your hamstrings come down either side like that. So then again, we'll smooth these all out. And you don't want to smooth too much, because you don't want to just smooth away everything that you just did. You want to just kind of smooth away some of the rough spots, and especially where they transition between each other. That's really the main thing that makes your anatomy look the best, is those insertion points are really the key, getting those transitions down. And then we'll come back up here and into the crotch. You have your crotch muscle that sticks out here. And if you have sculpted your inner leg correctly, after we smooth this out, you should have a small plane right here. What I mean by plane is it should be relatively flat right there. You've got to make sure that you have that inner crotch muscle. If your leg's looking too skinny without that, you can see if I undo, see how skinny the leg looks without that. It looks kind of funny. You really want to make sure that you build that muscle up, and that will add to the leg itself and make it have the correct shape. So you can see here I actually made his glute a little too small, so I'm actually going to enlarge that a little bit, because your butt muscle's pretty big, so you want to make sure that it's in there. And then just one last thing really quick, we'll reference the bones again, make sure we have our ankle bones in. And we're not going to dive into the feet, because they're just kind of very complex mix of tendons and extensors, and majority of that anatomy you can't really see on a person. And usually in this class where people are going to have shoes and other things on their characters, so we probably won't even have feet, or we will not even see them, so I don't want to get too deep into that. Again, these anatomy lectures are just to give you a quick overview of the basics to get you started and to get you down the right road when you're sculpting your characters. Okay, so for this week, if we can take an image like this, of our leg. Now the way I'm doing that again, I'll hit Control N to clear that. I am positioning in one view and hitting Shift S. Then I'm holding Alt and moving it over, turning, Shift S again, and then I'm turning, moving over, and then I'm going to leave that right there, and I'll go up and do Document, Export Image. I don't want to do Grab Doc, because that gives me my whole UI. Some people were submitting again with the whole UI. We don't want that. Just Export Image, and export that as your leg anatomy. And then we'll also do one like this for your arm. And if you're working on your character, if you can separate or hide the rest of the sculpt, so I can just see the arm and the leg, that'd be great. So then position your arm like this and submit an image like that. And what I mean by hiding your sculpt is just like I had here. I came in and I held Control and Shift, and I went to my Select Lasso, and I selected out just this one leg like that. I didn't delete anything. All I did was temporarily hide all of that stuff. So if you're doing anatomy on your sculpt and you've done you know, some symmetry sculpting on your model, just give me an image of one of the legs. I don't need both legs, and I don't need the rest of the model. So if you've done this, if you've worked in symmetry, just turn symmetry off. So instead of taking both, I'll turn symmetry off, and I will just take the one leg, and then I will do Shift S, and then position like that. I want the front, side, and the back of the leg and the arm. And then submit that for this week's assignment. For your midterm project, we are going to submit a character sheet. So doing the Shift S is actually a great way to get started. We can either do this all in one image, or you can take separate images and composite them into Photoshop. For our final project, you're most likely going to want to bring it into Photoshop to do some post alterations to the photograph for the final assignment, to kind of jazz it up even more for your final submission. But for our midterm, we can either do a front and a back view here. Well, I'll do a front and a side. Actually, no. You know what? Let's just bring it into Photoshop. So we're going to take our image here, and we're going to document, export, and we'll just export this, and then we're going to do a document export, and we're going to call this one side. And then we're going to do a back. And then we're going to do with perspective on a 3/4 view. So you will take your character and then we will close out ZBrush, and we will open Photoshop. And I know everyone should have access to Photoshop. And if you have not used Photoshop in the past, there are a million YouTube videos that can teach you the basics, but I would assume everybody's used Photoshop at least once. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. Sorry if my screen is cutting off here. And we're going to make this extra wide. I'm actually going to probably do 18. Just so that it's nice and wide, because I'm going to bring all of my images that I just made into here. So I'm just dragging and dropping all of my images. And where's my front? Okay. Okay. So now with each layer, we're going to set these up so we can see each one. Kind of being a pain in the butt for me. Sorry, I'm not used to having to work on such a small screen. Okay. Yeah, my computer's actually having a hard time because I'm running the recording program at the same time while I'm trying to do this. It's not letting me use Photoshop the right way because I have part of the screen cropped out. But all we're going to end up doing is you're going to bring all of these images in and you're going to set them up. Oh, now it's starting to let me do it. Okay, or not. You're going to set these images up so that I can see all of the angles of your model. Okay. And I want to see front, back, and side in a 3/4 view. I want you to set them up in Photoshop like this, and hopefully you guys will have a lot less trouble than I'm having because I'm running so many programs at once, and Photoshop is just not liking my screen recording program, unfortunately. Yeah, it is just not. It's not enjoying my program. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do a full explanation, but hopefully you guys will get the idea of where I'm going. So I want them set up like this, so I can see each view, and then I want you to crop the entire image out. Like so, and just layer each view in a way so I can see them all lined up like this. Now you can't see the side view in this one because it's not allowing me. I'm having to hold this one, see it keeps snapping back. But I want you to set it up like this for your midterm project. So you'll have a front, back, side, and a 3/4 view, all composed into one image like this. This is a character sheet, so you can see each view of the character that you've made, your progress so far, on one image. And we're going to try to keep the image as small as we can, but just for downloading purposes onto Canvas. I know Canvas only likes, I think, about 50 megs for a downloadable file. So if your image is bigger than that, just try to drop the resolution down maybe a little bit, or drop the size. You might have to come in and change your image size or your canvas size to help drop down the file size. And if none of that works, maybe try to compress or zip up the file and download that. But it shouldn't be too much of an issue, and then you'll want to submit a JPEG. So once you do this, file and save this as a JPEG image. Once you have all your layers set up in a nice row, you'll set it as a JPEG, again to help with file size, and then you will submit that to the midterm project assignment. And that's it for the midterm. All I want to see is your character up to where it is right now, set up in this character sheet format. That way I know that you, one, know how to bring all of your images into Photoshop and compose a character sheet, and also I will be able to see all the views of your character to see if you are up to date with the head bust and the anatomy lessons that we've gone over, and that your character is in Dynamesh and everything. And then after the midterm, we're going to come back and jump into mesh extraction and start getting our clothes and all of our accessories and everything onto our characters. So if you have any questions, just send me a message, and hopefully I can help you out. The midterm is due next Tuesday because grades need to be in by Wednesday. If you have any issues, please just message me like I said. And hopefully this isn't too difficult. It shouldn't take you too long. So good luck, and I will see you in the discussion boards.